kind of our duty or responsibility to use the platform that God's got us on to try to help other people. And now that was easier said than done. I mean, it's been much harder to do.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum, keeping Jesus in the sports conversation. Here's your host for today's show, former ESPN producer, Jason Romano.
Here's Blake Anderson from Utah State. Hi, Coach. How are you? Welcome back to Sports Spectrum.
I'm good. Good to be back.
It's good to have you back. Obviously, sports and faith, there's going to be a lot of that we're talking through today. I'd love for the show to be honestly about Jesus and overcoming adversity. And we'll get to that, Coach, certainly with a lot of what you've walked through these past few years. But I figured we'd start on the positive, certainly talk some football first. The upcoming college football season, it'll be here before you know it. You guys open up at Iowa on Saturday, September 2nd. So give me an idea of how excited you are about this year for your team.
I really am. We had a great year one and won the league in 21, and last year was a little bit of a rebuild, and we got hit with the injury bug. That didn't help us, and so we struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
We got hit a little bit by the portal, but I felt like our staff did a good job and kind of attacking our issues. And I thought we had a really good spring. Guys have come together. It's a tight-knit group, which is hard to do these days with all the attrition and transition of new players. But I came out of spring really optimistic. We've added a few pieces over the summer already, and just watching the way our guys work, over the summer with our strength staff and our coaches, feel like we got a good team and I'll have a chance to go. Really fun group to coach, high energy, really good attitudes, high capacity for work, kind of just enjoyable group to be around. Now, we'll find out real quick how good we are, because going to Iowa is not going to be an easy task.
No.
But I haven't been there before. Just really a ton of respect for their program. But to go there and kind of be a part of that, the Children's Hospital and all the things that comes with kind of that trip,
yeah,
we'll find out real quick what we're made of.
Is that your biggest question mark? Because that was one of the questions I had, is what's the biggest question mark for you as a coach with this team?
Yeah, I think just figuring out what you have each year is going to be a challenge for everybody. There's so much attrition with the portal. We lost a handful of starters to Power 5 programs, and just we're not in a dollar for dollar kind of competition NIL space.
Yeah.
We're in a space that's competitive at our level, but we had some players that went on the open market and left. We've replaced all those, on paper, but I don't think anybody's going to know what really they have if they had any kind of attrition at all. I don't think you're going to know what you have until you get into the season. And so we don't have preseason. So you'll figure it out on a game that matters, week one in Iowa, and they'll be top 25 in a lot of polls. I would assume one of the best defenses in the country, and I know they've made some offensive changes. So we'll figure it out. I just have a good feeling about this group. I think we'll be competitive. Hopefully we'll be competitive enough to make a run in our league. Now, what that looks like against Iowa and their defense, I really don't know.
It's so interesting to hear you kind of talk about the portal and the NIL and all that stuff, and guys you've been coaching a long time. That had to have not caught you off guard. But it had to have made you think, oh my gosh, coaching now is different for you today than it was 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago in some cases.
Yeah, completely. It's you look at the portal, we don't win a championship in 21 without the portal. We took a really good senior COVID class and a roster that was a little bit in disarray coming out of COVID. I think COVID got a lot. It crippled us at Arkansas State. Yeah. We had one of our best teams, and it just got through beating Kansas State week 2, and then 158 tests later, and we crippled. We limped to a 4-7. So we took over a roster that had kind of been through that, but we brought in a very good core group of transfers, and it translated to a championship. Now, you add the second piece of that, the NIL piece, and where it headed, and it's taken even another turn that we're all trying to figure out how to handle. It hit us bigger this year than it did the year before. probably at least 5 starters that left that would have played for us next year, and that did not happen the year before. But in this case, I think just being able to look on the market and see out there what's available, and even though we're in a good space here, not at the level that they are at most of the Power Five places, it's a new problem, and we're all going to have to figure it out. And I don't know if we figured it out yet.
Yeah.
But we found a place that works for us. We've got a collective in place. We're taking care of our guys here. We had some guys that could have left that didn't, that are happy here. We had a few that left because they could be competitive on the open market. And I don't know. We just got to figure out what works for us. And hopefully we found that. I don't know if we have or not. We'll figure it out this season, I guess.
I don't know if anybody's figured this all out, to be honest with you, Coach, but I think it's the new normal. I guess in some ways you hope it's not too normal, but it's the new way of coaching. And I think, over the next few years, I think that'll play itself out a little bit more here with Coach Blake Anderson on Sports Spectrum from Utah State. When you came to Utah State, when we last had you on, you were at Arkansas State. That was December of 2020, speaking of the middle of COVID. What was it about this place that you're at now where you saw God saying, "Yep, this is where I want you to be, Coach"? What was that process like to even say yes to come to Utah State?
Well, I knew I needed a change from Jonesboro. 7 years, a lot had happened those last 2 or 3 with Wendy's battle with cancer, and it just seemed like everywhere I turned, there was just something else that kind of reminded me of that. I think the fan base deserved a change too. They've been through a lot with us, and they needed kind of to take a deep breath and start over. A change of scenery was really important to me. I knew the previous head coach here, Matt Wells.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of my closest friends. I knew the AD, John Hartwell, had gotten to know him. He was in the Sun Belt at Troy. So there was a lot of familiarity with those people. And then I'd been out here and played, and been out here and gone skiing, and it just had enough of an idea of what this place looked like and what it could be. I felt like what we do and how we do it could be unique in the Mountain West and on the West Coast. And to me, it was a place that would be a great place to live, number one, but it had a chance to be successful on the field based off what Gary Anderson and what Matt had done over the last 10 years. So it turned out to be a really good move for us. I love the place. The valley is absolutely gorgeous. Never get tired of the sun coming up over one mountain range and going down over another. Yeah. The weather, the people, a very passionate fan base, and obviously very quick success earlier than we expected. But it's made it a pretty fun ride. But I just felt like I needed to kind of take a step back and kind of hit the reset button a little bit. And it's been helpful. It's been somewhat therapeutic in that sense. I'm remarried, adopted 2 little ones, and I thought it was a good fresh start for us too. I didn't want Brittany to be looking over her shoulder all the while in a life that Wendy and I'd had together, and so we're able to kind of make our life together here too. So it worked for a million different reasons, and this is kind of where God led us. I looked at several other opportunities, even looked at maybe not being a head coach, maybe stepping into a different role. And when this one opened up, after I had talked to Matt very thoroughly, my agent Clint Dowdle and Jimmy Sexton were really, really involved in the process. But having sit down with John Hartwell, I just felt like this is where we want to go. And I'm glad we made the choice we did. It's not easy. It is a challenge in this league and where we're at. But man, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I've been out there, Colorado more than Utah, but I've been into the Utah area a little bit. And I mean, just the beauty, the majesty of God's creation in those areas with the mountainous ranges. It's hard to beat anywhere else. I know there's people who prefer, the beach and the Los Angeles and all that or whatever, or the South and Florida, but it's hard to beat, that mountain area of Utah and even Colorado. It's so nice out there.
Well, we're about an hour northeast of Salt Lake. So you leave Salt Lake and you take a right and you go through the mountain pass, and we're in the Cache Valley, and we're stuck literally between 2 mountains. And it's absolutely maybe the prettiest place I've ever been. We're about 5,000 feet above. You can be outdoors year round. You can drive 20 minutes to ski. You can hunt, fly fish. I mean, the kids never run out of things to do. And
yeah,
it's just, it's absolutely a beautiful place to be. So there's just, we try to create balance here with our guys and then let them enjoy what the things do. They'll meet me on the ski slopes in the winter, and people are like, "You let your players?" I said, "Man, heck yeah, you're here for 5 years. Enjoy every minute of it."
That's right.
They'll be on the lake and on the river today. They'll be on the ski slopes in the winter. We try to have a good time, and then when it's time to go to work, we work really hard.
No, that's good. That's good. He is Blake Anderson from Utah State. I'd like to pivot a little bit if we can, and talk a little bit about overcoming adversity, trials in life. You've gone through so much. You mentioned Wendy, losing her in 2019. You remarried, but then last year with your son Cason and everything and losing him. I'm just wondering, I think my first question before we kind of go into a little bit of what you've been battling and the platform now that God has placed you in, but just how are you doing? Because that's a lot to go through for the last few years.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Coach?
You know, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that I do. I'll never be the same person I was. We were able to prepare for Wendy's battle, and it was visible and it was rough, but we did it together. And a lot of great people around us, and had a lot of great conversations along the way. And as rough as it was and as hard as it was, there at some point it also, because of our faith, it became a blessing that we knew God where she was going to be.
Yes.
Losing my dad was very similar that next year. He'd had a long life, a great believer. He was ready to go home, and he was struggling and physically in a bad place. So it was some sense of relief that he went peacefully and that God took him home. Losing Cason has been much different.
Yeah.
I thought I knew what grief was and what pain was, and I can tell you that I didn't. And what this last year has been like it's been a struggle that I really didn't understand. And I guess until you go through it, it's hard to explain. There's seldom a minute that goes by that he's not in your thoughts, and just we spend our whole life trying to take care of our kids and keep them safe and help them grow. And you lose that opportunity to do that. He knew the Lord. I was able to baptize him when he was little. And I remember getting a phone call from him on a youth mission trip when he was in high school. And he called and said, "Dad, I just want you to know I rededicated my life to Christ tonight." And I remember those moments. So there's peace in the fact that I know where he's at, and I know he's with his mom and his grandfather, and he's in the presence of Christ. But the pain of losing a child is unlike anything I could explain to you.
Yeah.
So I'm doing okay. I've got great people around me. God brought Brittany and the girls into my life. My other two have been amazing, and some great people on staff and just accountability partners and people praying for me. But I'm hurting in a way I didn't know was possible.
Yeah. I think the reason why I want
I tried to,
yeah.
I cry a little bit easier than I did before. And I read a quote, you cry a little more often and a little bit easier than maybe before. And that's been true. And talk to God a lot, and don't always know what to say, but lean on Brett, the girls, and so many good people around me. And then try as best I can to use it for some purpose and share Christ through it. But long answer for short question, I'm doing okay. Probably walking with a little bit of a limp, and I would expect that I probably will for the rest of my life.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think one of the things I wanted to ask you, because I think a lot of people, when they've met someone or know someone who's gone through what you've gone through, and certainly losing your son in the way that you did, they don't know how to respond or how to react or what even to say, even as believers, as fellow believers. Like I mourn with you, and I also am rejoicing in some ways with you, because knowing that, the three people that we just spoke about all gave their life to Christ and are in the presence of God. Like that's what we're living for, right? But yet it's really hard to see God in the midst of tragedy, in the midst of pain. What was that experience like? Because your faith was strong. That's why we had you on in 2019. Obviously, we wanted to talk to you about coaching, but talk to you about Jesus. But now your faith was probably activated in a way that you were never thinking you would have to activate it. I'm wondering what that was like with you.
I just don't know. I don't understand how you could go through it without your faith. Um, it's everything that holds me together. The peace of knowing that there's more to this than just what we see. The peace and the presence of the Holy Spirit. That is tangible to me and real to me. I don't know how I would be able to get up out of bed and put one foot in front of the other if that wasn't for that knowing without a doubt that the minute Wendy took her last breath, she was in the presence of Christ. The minute my dad took his last breath, the minute Cason, even though the fact that he chose to take his own life, the scripture's clear. He's in the presence of Christ immediately. I don't know how I would function otherwise. I'd be an absolute disaster, and I would be angry and just would be worthless to anybody. The presence of the Holy Spirit and God speaking to me in my heart and in my ear, and just that constant look, I got you. I'm going to use this. You're not alone. He promises us that trials and struggles are coming. We shouldn't be surprised by it. And I wish they were different ones. I didn't. It's not what I wanted to sign up for. But at the end of the day, it's where I'm at. It's where God's got me, and I can either blame Him and be angry, or I can lean on Him and let Him use it. And that's really just the approach that I've always taken. It's more important to me to praise Christ in the trials and in disaster and in struggles than it is when we're 12-2 and raising championship trophies. That's easy. I've always thought, yeah, and I love when guys use their platform and they get a chance to speak. The whole world's watching, but all right, this is even bigger. Mm-hmm. and even more important that when my kids, my players, the people around me, those that follow me on social media or watch a podcast, I need to remind them that, hey, man, I'm leaning on Him more now than I ever did when things were going good. This is when this is crunch time, and without without the presence of Christ and the Holy Spirit and the absolute 100% zero doubt that He is real, tangible in my life, and was there to accept Wendy, my dad, and Cason in the midst of tragedy. That to me that's the only thing that gets me up in the morning.
Yeah, that's the hope that we have in Christ. How soon after all this happened did you recognize that we hear about turning pain into purpose, right? Like, how soon did you recognize after everything that happened with Cason that you suddenly were given a different purpose here, a different platform, to point to God, but also to bring awareness to mental health and all these things? Like, how quickly did it? You obviously have to have time to mourn and grieve, but did you recognize fairly quickly that this was something that I was like, I can sit here and I can blame God, or I can actually turn this into some kind of positive?
Well, I still struggle, honestly, to speak about it, and have only spoken publicly a couple times. It's still way more raw and fresh than I thought it would be, a year into this. But Brittany and I drove back from Texas. We actually drove Cason's truck back from Texas out here, and really gave us a lot of time to talk on the way. And remember having the conversations. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do this and when we're going to be able to share the story. I said, but that this is something we're going to need to do. This is where we're at. It's where God's got us, and it is our kind of our duty or responsibility to use the platform that God's got us on to try to help other people. And now that was easier said than done. It's been much harder to do, and I've struggled to get through every conversation I've had with people about it.
Yeah,
but I've had so many people reach out and respond and say, I needed what you had to say. I needed to hear what you had to say. I needed to hear what God said through you, whatever it is. And so I think I knew real quickly that it was needed. I've struggled way more in practice because the emotions are so strong and so real. And it seems like yesterday, Jason. It's been a little over a year, and it seems like that phone call came yesterday. I don't know that that's ever going to change. I talked to the Helinski family and gotten to know them, and they're 4 years out, and just listening to them speak, and it's still just as emotional as raw as it would have been if it happened 4 months ago. So this may be finding my way through that may be more difficult than I thought it would be.
How do you respond if somebody asks you what's the best way to if they're going through something similar in their life, or it might just be people in their life? Like, I know somebody that went through something. How would you have referred me to respond to them? Like, what was, as you went through this, what's the best? I mean, there's really no 100% perfect way, but
no, you're right. There's not.
Yeah.
Just be true to yourself. I mean, if you got to cry, cry. You got to scream, and you got to scream at God a little bit. I mean, God knows our heart.
Yes.
And so I've never blamed God, but I've been mad a lot.
Sure.
And I just said, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to hurt. The only thing it's not okay to do is quit. We got to keep living. We got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I spoke to a group a few weeks ago and told them my game plan is very simple. Lean on Christ, lean on the people Christ has put in your life, and, take one step, put it in front of the other. If it's a limp, if it's on your knees, whatever that may be, and know that you're not always going to be at your best, but you got to show up. I tell my players, we're going to play a game at noon on Saturday. You may wake up with a headache. You may not have gotten any sleep the night before. I don't know. Your wife or girlfriend may be screaming at you, but they're going to tip the ball off at noon, whether you want them to or not. And so we've got to learn the skill of showing up and giving everything we got. And I'm trying to do that in life. And that's what I would tell people. I mean, and I also tell them there's so many great professionals out there that are trained to deal with this kind of trauma and these kind of emotions. And, I've not personally been a big therapy person. Yeah. But my oldest son has found it to be really, really valuable and very helpful for him. I went through grief counseling when Wendy passed, and a couple months in, me and the counselor kind of looked at each other, and she said, "Blake, you can keep coming back as much as you want to, but I really don't think this is your therapy. I think you live in your life and using your platform. You're welcome to come back, but you've got a good foundation. You know where you're at. You're just gonna hurt for a while because you loved your wife." And but I think there are a lot of people that benefit greatly from seeing a counselor and grief counseling and therapy. And so I tell people, lean on Christ, lean on the people that God's put around you, whatever that circle is, whoever those people are, and then be willing to ask for help. Be willing to reach out and find out if sitting down with a counselor or therapist is helpful for you. And some people will find a ton of value in it. Some people won't. But, I just look at Colton, my oldest son. He's 28. He's been doing therapy, grief counseling ever since we lost Cason. And it's been really, really helpful for him. And so to me, man, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's good. As we wind down, there was another scary moment. Not that I'm trying to be all negative here or Debbie Downer, but you had a player, Josh Davis, who had a pretty scary moment on the field back in March at practice. I'm just wondering quickly if you could share what happened, but how he's doing, I think is the important question to ask here.
Well, he's doing great. Number one, he probably won't play football again. He has a permanent pacemaker in there, but he is a walking miracle. He is so fortunate to be alive. It's the first time in my career having seen something like that, been a part of something like that. It was the scariest thing I've been a part of. He collapsed in pre-practice, completely unrelated to football. He had a seizure. He's had one before. The previous seizure, he had the seizure, came out of it, was fine, no issues. This one, his body just responded in a very strange way, and he ended up in cardiac arrest. And it took almost 20 minutes of CPR there on the field. And I remember my dad telling me when he had a heart attack that he couldn't speak to anybody, but he could hear them talking to him. He could feel the presence of Christ, and he could hear the people around him talking to him. And so myself and the team that were there, we just kept working on him and kept talking to him. And that kid fought so hard. He got better quickly, way quicker than the doctors thought he could, but he went through a lot. He's doing great. And and we've again used it to just remind these kids, man, that life is not promised. And that, man, if you've ever thought you ever didn't know what a miracle looked like, that was it. And that God gave that kid a second chance at life, and he's going to use it and use it well. And if you got any doubts about, if my heart stopped beating right now, where would I spend eternity, man? You need to find Christ. You need to know Christ the way I do. So we're really glad he's doing well. He's actually out here kind of being a student assistant for us. He's back with the team, signaling and doing ball. And our guys have done a phenomenal job kind of loving on him and wrapping their arms around him.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, what you described reminds me of the DeMar Hamlin situation. Obviously a little different as it's happening in the middle of a game on Monday Night Football, but it feels like that was somewhat similar.
Very, very similar. I actually watched that incident. That one came at after an impact. This one, nobody even got close to him. We weren't even sweating yet. It's just a physical condition that hit him, but it responded very much so the same way. All the medical personnel did a great job. For me, it brought up a lot of emotions. I mean, it was a struggle to really see, but man, so proud of how the kid fought, and happy to say he's doing really, really well.
That's great. Well, last question, Coach, and really do appreciate your time and your willingness to share a little bit of what you've been working through. Today, as we talk, season's around the corner. What are you thankful to God for most? I was thinking about asking about gratitude, and I'm like, man, it's hard to find gratitude when you've walked such a difficult journey. I think of the book of Job, and I think about how he was still able to find gratitude in all that he lost in that story. What are you grateful for right now and thankful for when you think about where God has you?
Grateful for the fact that I do have the peace and knowing that those that I love are in his presence. I would, as I said before, I would be an absolute basket case if I didn't know that, and if I didn't have complete confidence in that. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm not sure about, but that's one thing I am completely sure about. I'm so grateful that God brought Britton girls and into my life. I don't know how I would have survived this last year if I didn't have her there to lean on. Yeah. I've got amazing coaches and staff and friends around me. Some of these guys have been with me for 10 years now, and some of them I helped raise. And Kyle Cephalo has been with me now for 10 years. He's my co-coordinator on offense. He was here the morning I got the phone call from my brother, and he's been around my kids. He's been in my home. We've done all kind of life together over the last 2 years, and the fact that he was sitting right here next to me when I got the call about Cason, just the opportunity to do life the way we do. I mean, there's so many things to be thankful for, but those are some of the most important. Just relationships mean more to me now than they ever have. I feel like at times in our life I've taken them for granted. I've been so busy and so focused on my career or taking care of everybody, but slow life down a little bit, enjoy the relationship, spend time, really invest time in people, and really I'm grateful for the opportunity to get to continue to do that.
That's good. He is Blake Anderson. September 2nd is going to be here real quick at Iowa. It's Utah State and Iowa college football starting soon. But more importantly, just love hearing that the Lord is still working in you. And that's a good thing, Blake. And we appreciate you sharing, man. All the best to you. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for watching today on Sports Spectrum. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos. And if you want more stories on sports and faith, check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.